Yes, the discourse is true. Silksong is one of the toughest 2D modern platformers out there. And whether you're a Hollow Knight pro or a Metroidvania superfan, or even a Souls-like lover looking for a new challenge, trust me, you'll get tested both in combat and traversal. However, there are a few easy tricks that you can keep in mind to make your overall gameplay a lot smoother and improve your experience. So if you're someone who's really struggling, don't worry, we've got you covered. Here are some of our favorite tips to get you through Hollow Knight Silksong. Oh, and by the way, minor spoilers ahead for some of Silksong's areas and unlockable abilities. Okay, if you've been online at all after the game's release, you've seen how annoyed people are with these freaking things. So here's a 2-for-1 on how to deal with Silksong's pogo. First, get used to Silksong's aerial pogo as soon as you can. The diagonal trajectory takes some time to get used to, and the ramp up for how demanding the platforming is in this game happens very quickly the moment you enter Hunter's March. Mess around in the early game by trying out the D-pad or the thumbstick to see what feels more natural to you when performing Hornet's downward attack. Second, echoing what just about everyone else is advising, if you're still having trouble with Hornet's diagonal pogo, seek out one of the alternate crests you can equip. This will change not only Hornet's moveset, but also some of her passives and her unique moves, including her pogo. Crests like the Wanderer or Reaper crest will make it way easier to downward attack in more of a general direction, allowing you to platform way easier. And last, as a quick bonus tip, remember that you don't have to do everything immediately after discovering it. There's a reason the entrance to Hunter's March is defended by a giant nameless enemy that looks like a boss but actually isn't. And that's to keep you out. Don't be afraid to go and explore other parts of the map and save this place for later. Deflect, deflect, deflect. Sometimes offense is the best defense, and in the case of Silksong's combat, is no different. You may have noticed that while in combat, a perfectly timed attack will deflect off an enemy's weapon, negating any damage that otherwise would have hit you. This is great for when you've got multiple enemies all attacking you at once, and can even be performed as a downward attack, allowing Hornet to stay or get up into the air. But did you know that nearly all projectiles enemies throw at you can also be deflected back? Whether it's projectiles from a small enemy or from a boss, try hitting them back. They may even do some damage if they successfully return to sender. This will help you a ton when dealing with aerial enemies or when you're trapped in gauntlet rooms with loads of enemies. Bonus tip that there is also a dedicated parry in the game, but it is not tied to Hornet's default moveset. Look out for hidden areas. Much like any other Metroidvania, Hollow Knight Silksong also has a generous amount of hidden areas in every biome. However, in this game, it can be quite difficult to find some of these areas since they don't make them very obvious. One good thing to do for this is to swing at every wall you go past and pay attention to the sound it makes when you hit it. Hidden rooms will often be behind breakable walls. If the wall is breakable, it'll make a sound of breaking objects instead of the normal clinging. Some hidden areas are also not blocked by walls and just need you to go through them in a specific way. If it looks like you can jump into the corner of a room or walk below the edge of the map, try it. You'll be surprised how many hidden paths you can come across. Hidden paths are very important as they can give you a bunch of rosaries, shards, and other important items. Check back on vendors often. As you go through different biomes, most of them will be filled with enemies and difficult parkour that you have to go through. However, in some biomes, you can also meet friendly characters that can aid you in your journey. The first such area can be found after you get out of the mossy parts and get close to the marrow. A lot of these friendly NPCs also have their own shops where they can give you new tools, upgrade items, and even upgrades for your needle. These vendors can also get new items or refresh their stock after you reach a certain part of the game. Hence, it's important to check back on them often. Save your rosary strings. And speaking of vendors, rosary beads are the main item you'll need for trade in this game. These beads can be found both in hidden areas and by defeating certain enemies. However, there is one special form of these beads that comes in strings or necklaces. You can find these through exploration or by completing wishes. You can also group up your loose rosary beads into strings and necklaces by either talking to certain NPCs or by using the occasional stringer mechanism. Once grouped up, you won't lose them if you get eliminated in battle, even if you can't retrieve your body. It's important to save these permanent beads until you need them, since you don't want to run into a scenario where you're 1 health but you can't unlock a bench due to lack of beads. Learn enemies' movesets. Okay, this is maybe more of an obvious one, but it's still just as important. Silksong is not just a hard game, but a fast game, requiring a lot of patience and, of course, trial and error. But even though enemies and boss encounters can be tough, they are never truly insurmountable. Pay attention to audio cues and windups. They're short and subtle, but many enemies have enough of a tell before performing one of their moves. This will give you just enough time to either jump away, dodge, or even deflect against an attack. Bonus tip that you should always be utilizing your tools to get you through some of those tough encounters. Don't be afraid to swap out tools and try out new ones for a boss you're stuck on next time you respawn at a nearby bench. Pay attention to NPC dialogue. Farloom is filled with friendly and weird little NPCs that you'll meet on your journey. Even if you're not a lore enthusiast, these dialogue instances can be highly important, as sometimes they have tips to beat a certain biome, while other times they might have information on a boss. They'll even mention locations that you should be heading to next. This means that as a bonus tip, you should always be both exhausting NPC dialogue until they run out of things to say, and frequently returning to previous locations to get new dialogue and see if anything has changed. Don't ignore the wishes. And speaking of NPCs, a lot of the NPCs in the game will give you different wishes, in addition to the ones you'll find posted on town bulletin boards. You can find a list of all your promised wishes and what they need in the main menu, and completing them can bring you a lot of goodies. Make it a habit to do these. While some of these wishes give you a bunch of rosary beads, others can give you some rare items like the memory locket, which will give you the ability to equip more items on your crests. Completing these wishes makes your journey forward a lot easier and will often have you seeing some of the game's best side content it has to offer. And as a bonus tip, without spoiling, completing the game's wishes will ultimately lead you to the game's true ending. Trust us, it's really worth seeing this one through. And that's it for our list of essential tips for Hollow Knight Silksong. Let us know what tips you have for us in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.